Hello everyone, welcome back to the Osteophysio YouTube channel for today's video for our series of why am I getting pain in different areas. We are going to be targeting pain around the collarbone. We see lots of clients coming in with collarbone pain and we want to talk about different mechanical causes for this. Your collarbone is absolutely vital within the body. It provides a key attachment between the upper limb and the middle torso, but not only this, it provides protection of key nerves and vessels that exit the neck, go down into the axillary region and then down into the arm, so absolutely vital. A very common cause of pain around this area initially will be linked to the main muscles attaching around here. So there's lots of different muscles that blend around the collarbone, around the top of the neck and the shoulder, that when they become tight or fatigued or strained or even trigger points, so knots within these muscles, they pull on the attachments and they refer pain around the collarbone. So if we take the neck up through here, for example, we've got the sternocleidomastoid muscle, so this big muscle down here from the base of the head down, attaching into the collarbone, really key for neck stability and support. So if anyone has had, for example, any kind of trauma or whiplash into the neck, or they've done anything that repetitively has tightened around here, tightening of that muscle can refer down into the collarbone. What we normally find with treatment, and again we have done a video on how to release the neck which I will attach below, what we normally find is when you soften around here and you get all of it stretching, it typically takes the pressure off and the pain away from the collarbone area. This is exactly the same with the scalene. So we've got the scalenes attaching down below underneath the collarbone into the first and second rib, and then we've got the pectoral muscles coming up and attaching and blending up through here. So what you normally find if you're getting pain around the collarbone, and what we would do is palpate the different muscles around this area. So you would feel to see how it feels, and normally what we're feeling for is obviously any tenderness that's reproduced as a client, or any specific points of tightness potentially with the trigger points that might be causing that weakness and that soreness. Same up into the neck. What we would also do again is palpating all around this area. The reason why it's so key is if this gets tight, you've got your brachial plexus, which is your nerves passing through these muscles down into the arm. If the nerves are getting compressed and aggravated from this muscle tightness, not only will it give symptoms possibly down into the arm, but can cause pain referral over the collarbone. Next, we want to look at any joint involvement around this area that might be referring pain into the collarbone. So we've looked at these on different videos and around the ribs, but if we're thinking of the two joints either side of your collarbone, so we've got the acromioclavicular joint, which we spoke about in our anterior shoulder pain video, and the sternoclavicular joint, so where the clavicle attaches into the sternum. If someone has done something repetitively where they're leaning forward, so for example in an office position or an office job, or they're doing something where they're constantly rotating or dropping forward through the shoulder, that can cause pain and soreness and fatigue around this area that can refer into the joints and then potentially across into the collarbone. If someone's had a history of, for example, high impact sports like rugby or anything where they've jolted this forward, that can also refer pain over each of these joints and into the collarbone. What we would do assessment wise as osteopaths is we want to have our hand over the collarbone and we want to feel how the shoulder is moving. What we should find when we're coming up into flexion is you should feel this rotation through the collarbone as you're lifting up, so you need that to be lovely and mobile to add in that movement. If there's wear and tear into the AC joint, what we might find is when we bring this up and we're using the shoulder, we might feel localized clicking and soreness over that joint as well as into the collarbone. Same with the sternoclavicular joint. What we find if we're protracting and retracting the shoulder, so we're bringing it back, we might find localized soreness over this joint that might be reproducing the pain that they're feeling. So again, we will tag in the bio and also in the video below where you can get access to those videos that are helping to move these key joints. Another thing to note, as well as wear and tear into these joints, with that direct trauma, you can also treat trigger damage, for example, into the acromioclavicular ligaments and the interclavicular ligaments between the sternoclavicular joints, which might lead to laxity and therefore pain. So sometimes it can be too mobile through that area where they've had the issue or the trauma, which can also lead to pain, which is why it's so important to get all of these joints assessed properly by musculoskeletal expert to work out what is going on. Is it that you've had the laxity before, so the body's had to adapt and therefore wear and tear has then occurred because the body's trying to restabilize, or is it that it's still lax through that area and causing excessive pain? This leads us nicely onto another very common cause of pain over the collarbone, which is fracture over the collarbone. So it equates to about 5% of all fractures in adults, where we get either direct trauma into the collarbone or slightly at each end of the collarbone. What we find is that we can get different displacements of the collarbone. So if it's fractured, you might see someone where there's been a malunion, so it's not united properly after a fracture, or just really tender. And so people tend to find if they've had this fracture and it's repaired and they can do stuff, that different weather conditions can trigger the soreness through here, or if it has fractured in terms of mechanics, they've had to compensate for this. So if there is that change in position, they might have tightness over the surrounding muscles, as well as impacting how they're moving their shoulder. So what we would want to look at as osteopaths is obviously palpating around, feeling where the fracture is and how they're holding their shoulder, and looking at, can we help with any compensation? So post-fracture, if they're doing this through the shoulder, we're wanting to relax around, get it moving, get it stretched through the pectoral region, and try and improve the function as much as possible, even though obviously we cannot change the fracture into the collarbone. And two most common injuries for this will be a high impact sport injury, for example rugby, or potentially a road traffic accident.